Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Get into it!
Welcome to the Retrograde video game podcast, where this week we talk about the most amazing game on the PS5 these days.
Oh, very nice. Yes, my name's Andrew Bass, but with me as always is the bad boy podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Look out, here comes Mikey Man Aaronworth.
Mikey Man.
Yeah.
Mikey Man.
You know what's weird is I'm so used to the normal cadence of our introductions because we always record in person. We're doing it remote this time around because you're a little sick boy and you didn't want to get me sick. In my mind, I was like, okay, I've got my name locked and loaded. That one's ready to go. And I forgot that I have to say the intro of like what we're going to be talking about this week first. And then by the time I thought about that, then I fucking forgot what my name was going to be. And I just had to swing with the punches, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. We've done this, I don't know, 1,000 times. And every time I say the first part and I go, got it. And then the next part goes, I go, I think I say this part. You're like, oh my God.
It's amazing.
How bad am I at this?
I wonder if that's just like the fake it till you make it thing, like everyone has that in them, or if it does actually just become, you know, if we kept doing this for another 20 years, would it then be second nature? I don't know.
Oh, I think it's, you know, it's like intentional, like where you'll screw up, you'll see somebody like screw up the words of the national anthem while they're singing before a basketball game or something like that. And you're like, you know, the words, 100%. You're just, there is like some self-defeating quality where you're like trying to sabotage yourself. Whereas I think they're going to be strapping me down One Flew Cuckoo's Nest style. And I'm going to be like, welcome to the Retrograde. And they're going to be like, oh my God, he's doing it again.
Until like that, those will be my last. They were my first words. A lot of people don't know that. That's why we named this podcast the Retrograde. Yeah.
Yeah, you're immutable till 5-6 years ago. So
yeah. And then people were really bummed out when I started talking. They almost got away with one.
All this anticipation for, I wish we'd go back
to the days where I didn't talk. So it's gonna be one of the most amazing games on the PS5 because we're talking about Spider-Man 2. I can't wait to get into that. Similar to last week where we talked about Super Mario Wonder. Really nice happy. Catch. I know. I had to do that like 7 times on the recording as well. Our listeners love calling us out when we mispronounce Mario. And apparently it's a very, well, for sure, but apparently it's a very Canadian thing to say Mario. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
Maybe it's our proponent, our inkling to say A. So we just want to pronounce the A hard.
Long vowels.
Mario. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Mario.
Spider-Man 2. I'm excited to get into it this close to Super Mario Wonder because they're two very different games and two games that are different in a good way and a bad way. Playing them this close together really highlights the differences in those two games. So we're going to get into our deep dive thoughts on Spider-Man 2 in just a little bit. But I've been excited, Andrew, because in gaming news, I've seen a lot about this little game that you've told me about. I keep hearing about it from time to time. It's called Fortnite, and apparently they're going the way of World of Warcraft and introducing the vanilla version of the game again, and everyone's loving it. Tell me what's going on in the world of Fortnite.
Yeah, so it's called Fortnite OG.
And what does OG stand for?
It stands for Other Grandma.
Other Grandma.
Yeah.
What was the first grandma?
It's a mode
like?
of the game. You wouldn't get it. It's another mode of the game. That's fine. It's a code. It's like us cool kids. Me and, you know what's so funny? Fortnite 2 in the beginning, we would have talked about like, me and the other 10-year-olds and stuff like that. And you're like, I don't think 10-year-olds play Fortnite anymore. I think it's all people in their 20s.
I think a lot of competitive games, honestly, I was finding that even with Overwatch in its later stages, I call it later stages as though it's already passed on, which in some ways I think it has. But
to you and your existence.
It has.
Excuse me.
Is that a lot of people I was playing with, I think it's kind of like you get older and then you find your game or two that you just want to play consistently and that's it. Yeah.
100%. So they're playing Fortnite OG came back, Original Gangster, which this is such the weirdest co-opted term of all time. And it is brought back to Island 1. There has been many iterations of inside of Fortnite. There are different islands. There's always one island at a time, but it always changes over time. And inside of that, there are seasons and chapters, much like the Bible. And
there's seasons in the Bible.
Yeah, seasons of the Bible. And as it evolves, the island changes, quite wildly. And there are good chapters and bad chapters because of that. But the change is what draws people back as much as you could be the Terminator, or maybe the Easter skin will be Jesus Christ himself. Who knows?
That would be so cool.
That would be so cool. And And because of that, the game has dramatically changed over the years, right? I think it's been over 6 years now of Fortnite being out. And people have always asked, can we go back to the original island? The simplicity of the original island is what people really liked. I only started playing when the second island was around, so I have no memory of the first island, but I was always very curious about it because I don't think you realize how much things have changed. Let's bring up our beautiful poet Frost again about how you can never go home again because home has changed. And I would say, even though I'm playing Fortnite, the Fortnite I'm playing is not the Fortnite that you played. And I think there is something to that where near the end of the last season, they were talking, every game ended with like, everybody had mythic legend gold guns, like 6. Yeah. You're dropping all these like amazing things. You're picking up, you know, it just got a little too much, which makes sense that over time you would just keep doing the most. You would try and keep rewarding people with stuff. They call it in different forms power creep. Like in Overwatch, they call it power creep, where like in the beginning, Soldier 76 is what you needed to kill someone. And then by the end of it, Baptiste is more powerful than what Soldier was when he first started. You just keep making a more powerful character, so you need to amp up everyone else's power. Or in this case, you give someone rewards and then better rewards and then better and better and better. See, that makes total sense to me. And it's like that in comic books. Another interest I have that you just got to, well, then this guy's the bigger guy of the other guy. You know, maybe today's game even, who knows? Good point. That is a very good point. So in this one, they brought it back. And so, like I said, this is not a time I play the game, but it is Whiplash-like of how simple the game is. Now, there are certain elements that they've taken with you, like you can sprint and slide and all these little things, but the map itself and the droppings of the map of like in the chests and things like that, and the gifts and the receivables that you get are the same from the first island, from chapter 1. Oh, so even like drop rates for more valuable items and stuff like that. Yes, and because of that, there is so little heals and there's so little shields. And so these firefights can end so quickly now. And you know what? I would have found that annoying. And I will say for the first day, I was like, what the fuck? Like one shot. I didn't even see this guy coming. And now I see how this was something that they really wanted. So if everyone knows Fortnite, 100 players drop onto an island. The island, a storm is progressing. So it slowly closes a circle of how many people can be inside that at one time. And usually by the end, you can get like 10 players in a very small circle that are trying to shoot each other, right? But it has been, the firefights have been so short in Fortnite OG that you're on like wave 3 where the circle is huge and you're down to like 3 people that are trying to find each other because they're just eliminating each other so fast. I will say it's really fun. The map is incredibly sparse. So now with the older maps, you are dense with stuff. Like there are houses and trees and interactables and stuff every couple feet, but that also creates cover. And so now in this other one, it's like a town or a tree and then nothing. And so you're kind of looking out there and going, can I make this run? Can I make this run? And then you hear a gunfire, like shit. It's a lot of fun. I like that. I think about that again. I speak to you. The Rosetta Stone between you talking Fortnite and me understanding is Overwatch. Like the way you talk about how much it's changed and all that. You know that Blizzard is looking at everything Epic is doing and wondering how they can get a piece of that. And I think that they're probably going to revert to Overwatch vanilla at some point. Blizzard did that, as I mentioned earlier, with the World of Warcraft as well already. And I think that there's a pining for it. Sure, Robert Frost, he told us, and we should have listened to him, you can never go home again. And there's a part of me that's like warning myself, like, there are elements of original Overwatch that I absolutely hated. Reaper could only life steal by killing someone and picking up orbs that only he could see. Symmetra was a support who couldn't heal anyone. Yeah. Like all these weird changes that I've now developed a nostalgia for, but in the moment I was like, this fucking sucks. I would like to be able to go back and experience it, but not as the only available game. So my question to you is this OG release, is this the season or is this parallel to something else that you can play for Overwatch? It's a limited time thing that they're doing, and I really think that is for the best. You have to keep people wanting, and clearly there were 6.6 million people that logged into Fortnite, the highest ever on the first night of OG Fortnite coming back. And so there is an appetite for it, but I think overfeeding these people will only go like, yeah, okay, I'm good. I'm never coming back again. Yeah. And then what they should do is in a year from now, bring back the second island and then, kind of go from there. And then it becomes an ever populating cycle. An Ouroboros snake eating its tail. Yes, exactly. Let me ask you this, because you're as done with Overwatch as I am, I think at this point. If they released Overwatch 1.0,
You know, the game that we bought and now can no longer play, even if we wanted to.
Yeah, that game. I know that game.
That game. Would you go back and play it? Would you reboot the servers for it?
I don't know. Fortnite feels like something that's very alive, and this is a waste stop that they're going like, isn't this interesting? Okay, let's go back to that other thing. And I go, I like that thing too. That's good. The Overwatch thing would have to be surrounded by people like you and other friends that are like, we're going to play Overwatch. You want to play? I'm like, well, if you guys are going to play, I'll play with you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But if I'm just going to like open queue, quick play, you know, nah, maybe not. You know what I mean? Because the same thing that you're saying is like, you know, it gets people back, and, you know, the Robert Frost of it all really is that it's not, poetry aside, it's to you, it's like a deep seated addiction. So it's like, maybe, you know, like I've been sober a couple of years. I could probably have one Bud Light, and your friend's like, I don't know if you want to do that, man. And you're like, no, I'm good. I got it. I can do it.
That's honestly, that's what I'm feeling. I worry that they will release an Overwatch 1.0 because that will be the thing to get me back into it. But Andrew, I got to give you an update on like my life without Overwatch now. At first, it was great. It was like, I've got time for so many other games. This is fantastic. Lately, I've been just like pining for that comfort food game in my life, something that I can just like, I'm like, I got 30 minutes and I don't want to jump in with both feet into a new game with a story where maybe it's Spider-Man and, you know, an allusion to what we'll talk about later. Maybe I'm going to pick it up and it's going to be 30 minutes of me talking to Harry instead of swinging around the streets of New York. Maybe I just want to play for 30 minutes in Overwatch. Like, it's like I was a heroin addict. And it was, for a time, it was great. And then it wasn't. And I kicked it. And my family's so proud of me. And I had so much time for other activities. I worked out. I got in shape. But now I'm looking back to like those days in the gutter. And I'm like, man, heroin felt pretty fucking good.
It's a rosebud situation.
Yes. Yeah.
It is. It's like you have everything in the world that you've ever wanted. And you're like, yeah, but I just want my childhood sled. That's all I wanted, you know?
I just want some tracks on my arms again, baby.
Boom,
to ride that sled down.
Sled, yeah. I agree with you. And it's so funny that I did something very similar where I realized I was going to have some time on my hands with a laptop in front of me and not much to do. And I was like, well, I could read or, you know, do other things that are productive with my time. But I downloaded Stardew Valley for a half second.
Oh, amazing.
And I love Stardew Valley. It's a very adorable, calming game. Like it's not very stressful. And it's good. And then I played a little bit, you know, a couple hours, just like here and there. And I accidentally loaded the wrong, I only have 2 saves, the one I was currently playing and one from years ago. And I loaded that one up and I saw how far I was and I'm like, oh, and it just ruined the experience completely for me. And I just abandoned it. I just quit. I don't think, but you know, funny enough, I'm going back and playing backlog stuff. I am finishing Far Cry 6. Do you remember me playing that? Do you remember?
I remember you playing Far Cry 6? Yeah, you're visiting your old friend Giancarlo Esposito, the voice of Lex Luthor in Harley Quinn.
Yes, that's the thing he's known for. Yeah, and very well for it. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone else is like, "Who are you talking about?" And yeah, I finally was like, we were talking about backlog stuff, and I'm like, I was so close to finishing. What was I doing? Yeah. But if any of you D-pads remember, it was because I'd played Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5 immediately back to back and finished them both. And then I completely burnt myself out in the series while trying to play 6 that had just come out. The same thing I did with Horizon Zero Dawn. So I'm going to go back and play that now.
And you're liking it again?
Yeah, you know what? I'm in the middle. What a great way to answer that. Well, you know,
but that's kind of comfort food in its own way. Like all the Far Cry games are relatively similar. It's like they just changed the season on you.
It really is. It really is. It's also on an island, so I feel very comfortable. But it's a lot like Spider-Man or other games similar to this, where yes, I could go after a main story, I could finish it if I wanted to, but the world is littered with stuff to do, and so there is something very relaxing of going, well, if you want to spend time here, you can spend time here. You can help the villager, or there's cockfighting, or there's this or there's that, and you're like, okay, so I've got tons of stuff to do. It depends on how much at what pace I want to finish this game at.
Sure. Yeah, I those are games that I did really like. I worried that with you having put it down for so long, something similar to what happened with Batman Arkham Knight would happen to me, where like I was so close to the ending and picking it up. You know, the way those games work is they set you up with a pretty basic amount of available abilities, and then you build up abilities, gadgets, et cetera, et cetera. So combat gets super complicated. But you only retain all of the information about how to play those games because you slowly built up that knowledge. If you take a big enough break, you forget everything about those games. And beating Arkham Knight was nearly impossible for me because I had like the last final encounter and no memory of how to actually play the fucking game.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the only reason I bring it up though is because I feel like I was having a stroke because I played it and the level that I was had on my map as a waypoint to go to. So I was like, oh, I'm going there. Okay, great. It's a huge map, right? And so I'm going towards that place. It starts and it goes, you can't turn around once you start this mission. And I was like,
no,
I don't remember this part of the game. Like, never really given me that prompt before, right?
Yeah.
It then goes into the intro for Stranger Things with the theme song. And
what?
One for one, but it said something different. It said Far Cry Vanishing or something like that. But the theme song, the writing, the text, the logo, and I went, and I sat there for 10, like legitimately racking my brain going, was there a tie-in was this theme? Is this, wait. And I was just like,
am I having a stroke?
Yeah, I was like, what did I miss here? No, there seems to be some kind of tie-in because you do visit the other side and it's a whole thing. Weird. So, yeah, taking breaks can really trip you up, especially when you're on very meta fourth wall breaking levels like that one.
Yeah, I would have started to panic. Like I forgot what life was. Like that's the feeling that would give me. Like I lost the ability to discern what button presses will get me. I'm just like, I didn't know I was in Netflix right now. How did I is there a Netflix integration with Far Cry? Yeah, like how did this? Yeah,
that's what I thought. I went to the nearest mirror and touched it. And I went, okay, no, I'm good. Okay, I think I'm good.
Well, you also love taking red pills, right? And that's just political in nature.
I do, yes. That's mostly, yeah, I have a wild misunderstanding of the analogy of taking a red pill. And I'm even though the creators have told me to fuck off many times.
Yeah. No. The trans creators of the Matrix world were definitely siding with the Republican agenda when they made the Matrix. This is 100% what happened. Yeah, it's not at all a story of self-discovery and corporate sabotage. There's no way it has anything to do with it.
Yes, and identity changing. And yeah, I know.
Yeah. The Matrix. Some of the best movies. Love them.
The best.
I want to, speaking of backlogs and all that stuff, one game that has been notably absent from our conversations is Alan Wake 2, a game that you and I kind of talked briefly about earlier. Like we really want to give this game a shot. I think that game may be next on my list because so many people whose opinions that I respect have been telling me it's a fantastic game. All over Twitter and the internet. I think you've been seeing kind of the same thing. That horror plus Twin Peaks seems like very, very good. But you mentioned earlier, it's one of those like, I guess just wait for it to go on sale kind of things. I don't know.
I know, it's so sad that the part of this podcast that I think hurts our own gaming is we just did Scary Month.
Yes.
And now it's like, well, when am I going to pick up Alan Wake 2? I'm like, well, wait, no, I got like Wonder and Spider-Man 2 and all this other stuff that I felt like I was holding back on and now doing it. But I keep hearing such good things that it's even making me doubt my own strategy on that one.
Yeah, you doubted your sanity when you played Far Cry. You doubted your like this is it's that, and Killer Frequency was another game that I really wanted to play, like a scary game, and I'm just like, you get out of the scary month, I'm like, thank God I'm on this side of it, and now I never want to go back. But honestly, my relationship to video games right now, I realize like I collect digital copies of video games the way most people collect like vinyl records and just like buy them and keep them in their library, maybe never listen to them, but having it is what matters. Like the best case scenario for me is I buy Alan Wake on sale so that I can see that it's in my library and legitimately probably never play it. Maybe I will uninstall another game on my console that I haven't finished, so I have space to put Alan Wake in there so that I can look at it installed and feel good that if I wanted to play Alan Wake, I could, but I'm still not going to play it. Like I don't understand this relationship I have. Like the buying is better than the playing, or the only thing I can do based on how much time I have.
I'm surprised you haven't become a sucker for microtransactions then. You're just like, buying.
That little dopamine. Oh, give me that dopamine.
I need a new skin.
Bring back Overwatch loot boxes. You can see the end of Overwatch loot boxes and my end of that game. They're pretty close.
Yeah, tied 1-to-1. Yeah.
pretty much 1-to-1. But my death of Overwatch was not nearly as tragic as the death of Aunt May or Uncle Ben in the universe of the video game we're going to be talking about today. It's Spider-Man 2, baby. Insomniac's version. Let's do a Wikipedia disambiguation. This is not Spider-Man 2, the movie. We are not singing Hero by Josie Scott, although we would love to be Josie Scott and Chad Kroger.
Why did I watch that movie again? Because it
Andrew,
rips? Yeah,
I was gonna say,
that's why.
Don't apologize for that to anyone, including yourself. Watching Spider-Man 2 is always a good call. Movie's so good. You get to hear Hero, and that's the greatest song ever made for any movie of all time.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2, Andrew, a game that was high up on yours and my most anticipated games of 2023, developed by Insomniac, published by Sony, the same familiar story, released on October 20th of 2023. Right now, I'm curious, based on your experience with the game and what you've seen out there in the media, I don't know if you've visited Metacritic or if you pay much attention to that. Where do you think this game is sitting from a Metacritic point of view?
That's a good question. I think it's getting, from what I see, generally positive, like overwhelmingly positive reviews, not generally positive. So I'm going to say 90%.
That's spot on. That's exactly where we're at.
Is that
we're
it?
At 90%. Wow. 90% on Metacritic. Game Informer's a 9.5.
Informer.
Thanks very much. Famitsu a 38 out of 40. And IGN.
Oh, sorry. No. We don't do that with everyone?
No, that's pretty good, actually. What are you going to do for this one? IGN?
IGN.
I think, Andrew, Elliot, can you stop recording for a sec? Idiot. So the first one, actually the Famitsu one, that actually made me laugh. That wasn't even a fake laugh like I usually have to do.
Okay. Wow.
That was pretty good. There's two issues that I had with the IGN one.
Uh-huh.
It took you way too long to say anything. You froze up like you had another stroke.
There was a couple
Second
pauses.
one since Far Cry.
There was like pauses on the music sheet.
Before it started?
Yep.
Okay, because that's interesting. Usually the music sheet it starts because the music just begins when the music begins.
Sure. If it's a pretty straightforward. Yep.
I get it. Like you're a genius when it comes to these things occasionally.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it's also
genius.
Not only the pause, but it also didn't. I have already forgotten what it was you did to musicalize IGN. Oh, that's what you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good, actually.
Oh, you liked it? If I just turned it into a word?
That's actually really good, Andrew.
So don't use the acronym, just use the word. IGN.
Yeah.
Yeah,
honestly, that's pretty good. I think no more notes. I apologize because I think I just misheard.
You know what? Hey, you're just trying your best. I get it. We got to get bang for our buck here. We got a whole production team. We got to, make it worth it.
Elliot, let's roll again. That's my bad, everyone. I didn't realize I'm working with a fucking genius over here.
Not every day.
IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. Now, that's kind of interesting to me as a review, an 8 out of 10. And I think, once we have a chance to fully digest it, we can talk about what may have caused a review that's, for IGN, I think considerably lower than the average usually is. They're usually skew on the higher side.
I was going to say, not notoriously hard markers usually.
No, exactly. So this kind of surprised me a little bit, and we'll get into some of the reasons why in a little bit. The story, this takes place this one 10 months after Miles Morales, and just to get to catch the audience up, Andrew, on our history with Spider-Man and Miles Morales. What were your just catch us up briefly? Your thoughts on Spider-Man on PS4 back when you played it?
Yeah, Spider-Man 1, I think, was my game of the year, that year. I absolutely loved it. It really brought to light, Spider-Man, probably my favorite superhero comic of all time, comic book character of all time. I don't think I'm alone in that one, so it's not like a unique statement, but to bring to life what I thought my Spider-Man was supposed to be in New York and making it fun, I just was over the moon with it. I loved it so much.
And your Spider-Man, you mean Peter Parker?
Yeah. Only Peter Parker, very importantly. Yes. I know he's wearing a mask, but I know, and that's important. Then so much so I loved it so much I bought the DLC that came with it. I forget what that was, like Hammerhead or something like that. I forget what it was.
Yeah, largely forgotten once Miles Morales came out, which was essentially more DLC for it. But yes, there was the DLC for Spider-Man.
Yeah, it was with Black Cat. Whatever. And then Miles Morales came out, and that was phenomenal as well, and phenomenal for a whole different reason. It gets to tell the same story in such a different perspective, and it also brings what is so much fun about Miles Morales is it brings back the Spider-Man story to what I think most of us remember it as is a high school kid, or a younger guy that is experiencing the world, even though their story is very, very different. But those troubles of, trying to talk to girls and like all this guy, trying to negotiate many tasks in your life.
That's good. Yeah.
What were you laughing about?
No, like we had trouble talking to girls. Like, sure. Yeah.
No, you never had trouble talking to girls?
We're doing a thing now?
No, we're not doing a thing. No, you can just tell the truth.
We couldn't talk to girls. No, Andrew, they all wanted to fucking suck me.
God, they all wanted to do that to you.
Yeah, I guess if you're saying we had trouble talking to girls, it's because they didn't want to talk. They just wanted to fucking suck me. Yeah, I guess when you put it that way, it was hard to talk to them.
Wow, because they were too busy.
Fucking and sucking me.
Yeah,
do I need to repeat myself?
No, I don't. I think you made yourself incredibly clear that that your view on women.
It's not my view of them.
Oh, yeah.
It was my experiences crystal clear with them. The way I remember high school. And all of my
that's high school to you? Oh my God, man. That was high school?
Yeah, man. That was high school.
That explains you a lot.
No. I wasn't making up excuses because I was too scared to go to parties in people's basements because I was worried there would be dance music. Andrew, I would never make up an excuse. I would never do that. I was too busy letting people fucking suck. If they wanted, I would let them do it.
You weren't a participant. You were just the object of the fucking and sucking.
Yeah, I was a participant. I would participate in making someone's dreams come true, Andrew.
You know what's so funny? The thing you're doing now is what a kid in high school would do if they were like, yeah, I talk to women all the time. Like, yeah, my girlfriend is from another high school and we just suck and fuck all the time. And you're like, like way too specific. You're like,
oh yeah.
Fuck is this guy's bro?
Oh, you watched one porn video and you're like, that's what you're supposed to do with your significant other. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, no. And the Miles Morales is a great story. And like, I think we're, if you didn't read comics now, you're all the more familiar with it, with the Spider-Verse stories. But to be able to play the game too, I think was just such like it wasn't repetitive, which is the most amazing part. It was a really nice expansion into the world and
Miles Morales you're talking about specifically.
Miles Morales on top of the Spider-Man 1, right? Yeah. And so when they announced Spider-Man 2 and they're going to be together, you just thought, oh, that's not too much. I get how this could work. So yeah, that's where I was going at to it.
Yeah, and it's a proven formula. Insomniac is great with. I champion Insomniac all the time. I think they're the best in the business at making games fun. They understand what fun is in video games. And same thing when they announced Spider-Man 2. I was honestly less excited. I'm like, look, I know this game is going to be good because I know what we're basing it off of. I know they're not going to stray too far from it. But I felt like the experience I had in particular with Miles Morales, which spoke to me a lot more. I didn't even finish the original Spider-Man 1.
Oh, wow.
No, but I did finish Miles Morales and I fucking adored it. It was one of my favorite contained superhero games that I had ever played. And I do kind of consider it its own game beyond just DLC. Really showed off the power of the PS5 as well. That's what I got it on. But so when Spider-Man 2 came out, I kind of thought the same thing. I'm like, the stories have been established. Now they don't have the origin to keep you entertained, which the origin of a superhero is always such like a guaranteed interest point that it's almost cheap now. Yeah. So I was worried that they wouldn't be able to maintain the story. I thought Insomniac had a lot of work to do to keep the momentum going. And I think they pulled out a lot of stops in order to keep this entertaining. So that's kind of sets the stage for what our experience would be with Spider-Man 2 coming into it.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, some brief differences which we'll kind of touch on as we go. One of the main ones is to the combat. There's a parry mechanic now. Every game needs a parry mechanic. You have web wings because the game was kind of expanded so much that, there's more boroughs. New York is more fully realized. You can cross the river. And because of that, you obviously can't swing across the river. So you have to be able to fly. And then that flying can be incorporated throughout all of your traversal in New York City, and web lines, other gadgets, things like that. And then obviously some new Venom power, not Venom electricity like Miles Morales has, but like the symbiote's powers changes combat quite a bit in this. Andrew, some initial impressions from your end of Spider-Man 2. Compare it to Spider-Man 1 or not. What are your thoughts on the game so far?
Yeah, I'm amazed that there are the amount of changes that there are, and yet it still feels so much at its heart, all the parts that we liked about the original game. They just expanded on it. Now, that could get games in trouble in the past where all you do is just like, it's slightly bigger, and you're like, oh no, that's not good enough, whatever. Yep. This does feel very different, and it feels so smooth and seamless. It's kind of got the GTA thing of switching between characters, which works great because there's no loading screen. The fast travel really works, but something we're going to bring up later. Who cares about that fast travel when traveling through New York is so much fun?
So let's talk about that now. The best part of these games is traversal. And I remember this goes back to the original Spider-Man game on the PS2, not the original Spider-Man game, but the first one to incorporate actual web slinging through a real New York City.
Yeah.
The promise of that was so far beyond scope of anything we'd played at that point. You could drive around cities in a Grand Theft Auto, but you couldn't swing around cities, attach webs to buildings and things like that. That's the most fun part of the game for sure. Speed and momentum. Incorporating the web wings is a risk because it takes away some of the requirements of navigating the city streets, with the trade-off that you can get places much faster in a much bigger city. At first, I'm like, fantastic. What are your thoughts on the web wings after spending some time with it? The shine is kind of worn off a little bit. Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Do they add? Do they subtract? Where do they fit into the equation for you?
They're fine. I don't know. I think they're fine. I would fear when there's going to be naturally a Spider-Man 3, if this goes further, if it becomes even more of a thing, or they expand even more traveling options, I would worry about that. It's fine for what it is, I think, now, because it is a huge amount of map. But like between the fast travel and the wings, I don't know, that's fine. But I don't think it takes away from the game for me. What about you?
Yeah, I worry because one of the big things I say about open world games is when you expand the scope of it, you need to work really hard to avoid the game feeling bloated. And I know that it's still just gameplay. You find these little wind tunnels to get you through across the river. But if I track a mission and it's across the river, I'm so likely not going to go do that mission. The flying just feels like it. Look, I know there's no loading screens in the game, but I can't help but feel like if there aren't, then what is this that I'm doing right now? That is basically a loading screen because I'm waiting to get from one point to another. It's not fun to fly over the river. And honestly, I'm not a game designer. I don't know what the solution is to that, but I do know that they've expanded the map and made portions of travel less fun. I also feel like there's this temptation when I'm going through the city to just speed as fast as I can, get above the buildings and just fly.
Yeah.
And while that can be fun when you achieve it, it also feels not like Spider-Man. And it's definitely not as fun as swinging through the city. I'm spending way less time swinging through the city and and cornering buildings and all that stuff. And you know what it reminds me of? In Arkham Knight, they had the kind of the web shot that you could do, or the slingshot, and that would like shoot you up buildings and then glide. And I remember that coming out and me saying like, for everyone who loves traversing in Spider-Man, like this feels pretty similar with it. It wasn't one-to-one, but a lot of people were like, it's not as fun as web slinging. You're not going in and out of the buildings. Now that's basically how you get around in Spider-Man 2.
Right.
And Arkham Knight, and I think this is going to be kind of a theme of the episode for me at least. Arkham Knight already did it. And I wonder whether this newness that it contributes to the Spider-Man universe is only exciting because it's new to that universe, but does it take away from the feeling of Spider-Man? And I kind of think it does.
That's really interesting. It's funny. We talked about the IGN or the IGN, review and the 8 out of 10. And part of the review that they knocked it was saying that, even though it is bigger, the map, and New York is bigger, 3 to 5 boroughs are represented, that the New York is not developed enough, which is, I don't know, I found to be a little interesting that I'm like, oh, it's not developed enough yet. I've also seen all these clips and, whatever of these NPCs, and you could sit there for 40 minutes and hear a conversation and it doesn't repeat. And you're like, well, that's weird. Like, how in the world did they do that? But I understand what they're saying a little bit. It is also kind of photorealistic. The number of people that I know that live in New York and have found their apartment in the game is kind of crazy.
That's cool.
So
that's really cool.
Which is really cool. Creepy, but cool. Because that means like some guy outside was like just like,
I guess you have to place each building, or like going by MapQuest or something like that. Like, I don't know how that works.
Some kind of Google van that drives around New York, and for Spider-Man. So like I get both sides that eventually, it's no different than what we're talking about with Fortnite. The things get power. What do you call it? Power creep or something like that? Like things are going to get bigger. So you got to like, kind of keep amping it up. But let's not forget, one of the things that with Spider-Man, especially with Marvel, is called street level heroes, right? Those are the ones that are not going to space and doing things like that. They're like, he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and you can't get that far away. This, like I was saying, I'll allow. We start going more than this, then I'll start going, we got a problem here.
So that you talk about something like narrative dissonance in a game, and what you said like really speaks to some of my experience with the story and the gameplay in this. There's so much more power you have as Spider-Man now. There's so much more that you're doing. You're opening encounters with Sandman, and you're taking out this building-sized monster. And then all of a sudden, an hour or two later, you're Miles Morales helping someone propose to their partner for the prom because their screen runs out of energy, and like in the background there's a fucking robbery going on, and I'm like, don't worry, I'll help you propose. Like I understand that they're trying to ground Spider-Man, but is that Spider-Man like helping turn a TV on in a really, like, what I gotta say, like the narrative of that side mission, specifically, just to focus on this one specifically for the Brooklyn Visions quest where Miles has to help out his friends. The narrative of it is just that very typically written character who's like, everything has to be perfect and I have to do this thing, and this thing is wrong, Spider-Man, I need your help. And then something goes wrong, and then the gameplay of it is you just like attaching like a generator to a screen, and the payoff is boring. And I'm like, that feels like bloat to me. And it feels like a narrative dissonance when so much is going on and I'm taking these weird breaks. Does that work for you in a Spider-Man's your hero? Like I don't mean to take away from that, but it just didn't work for me.
Oh, don't worry, I don't take it personally. I didn't make the game. I just and if I did, I'd be horribly offended. But is it? No, I think where the game, if we're we'll get into bigger picture stuff later, but like if the game was going to fail in one way or another, it is in its side quests. And I don't even care about the context of the side quests, because I think for the most part, most side quests are kind of stupid in games. Like I think they always are, hanging on to some huge narrative story, and it's always going to feel silly by comparison. Now, maybe that works more in Spider-Man than anything else. Like I think that's why like GTA or some game that's trying to be funny, trying to is a key one, is that they try and make it as stupid as possible, because they're like, I understand this has no consequence in your life. Like somebody took my hot dog, and then you're like, I gotta go get this guy's hot dog. And you blow him up with like a rocket launcher or something like that. Nice. Is this one? This is what people would come to Spider-Man with, though. Like the thing is, I do get the idea that you have to fight an alien, and then at the same time, somebody's like, my cat went missing, and he's like, okay, let me try and figure that one out. Cool. So I do get part of that, but I do get that as a user, or the user of Spider-Man or the controller, that they would feel so inconsequential. You're like, why am I doing this? This is so silly.
There is that. No, that's exactly it. There is a tongue-in-cheek element that I think Insomniac is aware of, where it's like, isn't it so silly that you're doing this? But it's really hard to reconcile that with the fact that Miles Morales is taking it so seriously. There is no, like, the tongue-in-cheek isn't like, I can't believe I'm fucking doing this. When I like, it just feels like the stakes are so baffling to me. And this also goes to like a general issue with Spider-Man in general. And this is the last negative thing I'm going to say for a bit, because I do have a lot of very positive things to say about the game.
I was going to say,
I just wanted to, this is just some gameplay and story stuff out of the way. The fact that this is the drum that keeps getting beaten for Spider-Man is they try to ground the humanness of Spider-Man, where like Peter Parker is like dirt poor, can't hold down a job, this and that. You gotta have a way to monetize this, dude. Like, that's on you. Like, I can't imagine that money is so either take one small stack of cash from a bank, ask a bank owner for it, ask a restaurant owner for a little bit of a kickback, like whatever it is. You can't. Tony Stark should be able to monetize this somehow. Miles Morales,
just give him a loan. Just like, hey, buddy.
Oh,
can
true.
Can I take a stipend or something like that?
Not even a loan. Yeah, put him on a commission or something like that.
Yeah, seriously. Like
and then Miles's mom is like, she knows that Miles Morales is Spider-Man, and she's like, I know you're out there literally saving lives, but like, what about your college fucking applications? Like, not everyone fits into that box, dude. You got fucking Spider-Man as a son. Forget about college. Why is college in your mind at that point? Like,
I know
that makes no sense to me.
But parents are parents though. I don't know. That one doesn't stick to me. You could be the greatest like baseball prospect of all time. They're like, finish your degree. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to make $300 million. You're like,
but no matter how fast you can throw a baseball, Andrew, you're not going to stop a bank robbery like that. You're not going to. Well, maybe. Yeah, I guess.
I could be the baseballer, and I throw like just go. Like, it's just a hard cut to 3 people getting knocked out by a curveball. Such a curveball that like curves around the bank too.
Oh yeah, like I'm fucking Angelina Jolie in Wanted.
Yes, or I'm Randy Johnson and they're a bunch of birds.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I that one doesn't bug me enough because you do need to ground the story in whatever way possible. And I also get that like Miles, and something that maybe they didn't bring up enough or whatever, is that his dad just died, and like I would understand that his mom's like doing everything she can to ground him a little bit and like
maybe
to bring him back,
normalize his experiences and all that stuff.
He died as a police officer, and he's about to become some kind of law enforcement of some kind, and she's like, no, you're just much as you are a superpower, you could get shot in the head,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get it. And there's reasons for it. It just feels very inconsequential. I think as a parent, and this goes out to all the parents out there who have superheroes as children. Yeah. You also need to let them know that it's okay if they feel an obligation to save lives instead of get higher marks. You know what I mean? Like, you got to help them balance that out.
Also, like, try not to plan parties around high crime times or like obligations in which they need to be a good family member. Yeah, or maybe give them a pass every once in a while when they don't show up.
If they need to leave your a planned meeting between you and your new boyfriend, it's probably for a good reason, because they need to save a life. Your dinner party is not that important.
Or you can't just go like, hey, son, did you remember to pick up that cake on the way here? And then they don't, or it's very sloppy because it clearly was web swung all the way across the city. And then you go oh, what happened to this cake? You're like, what happened to this cake, Mom? What happened to this cake? I was
swinging around. I was late because I had to save human beings. It's not about the cake, Mom. It's about the fact that this cake is a little smushed instead of a civilian's head through the arms of Reptile. Like, I have to save this person.
Yeah, like Jennifer won't remember her quinceanera, but that other lady's life is saved because of me, okay? Just want to relax. Jesus Christ.
But I don't know, the quinceanera, though, that is important.
Quinceanera is an important time in a woman's life.
Important time. So Andrew, I want to just do a little palate cleanse here, because I feel like I've been negative on the game. This game is so fucking fun. This game feels so good to play. It's so much fun. In spite of the glitches here and there, which there are a few, I'm experiencing more in Spider-Man than a lot of the other newer releases where they're saying they're like really, really bad glitches. I've had the most glitches in Spider-Man.
Yeah, outside of Project Red, I think this is the most that I've
Cyberpunk,
faced.
This is but with that said, glitches are just a part of all major releases day one. The game itself is just, it's so free flowing. I love, every so often, if I get a little bogged down with combat or the story, just swinging around aimlessly in the city is enough to entertain me for like 15-20 minutes. It's such a fun experience doing that.
It was enough that like when I was done with number one, the story, I would go start it up again just to like swing around and fight some crime and stuff like that. Like be Spider-Man. Like some of that is just like just as much fun as the actual game. And that's why when you have to do these like insane side quests, you're like, you know what? I'm kind of just good being Spider-Man. Like that's kind of also a lot of fun. And so it kind of accomplishes the most important part of any video game. Do you enjoy being in the video game?
Yeah,
you know what 100%. I mean? Like there are so many games that we play where there are levels or characters or, kind of negative things that take away from parts of the game. And you just kind of go, oh, I just got to grin and bear it and just get through this. And then I'll go back to enjoy the game. I don't really ever feel that about Spider-Man because the worst case scenario is I just go, swing to Brooklyn or something like that. That's a lot of fun.
It's true. And the thing I always complain about with open world games is you end up with this map with a lot of marks on it, and you just have to go to them to get rid of the marks on the screen. There's something about the way Insomniac designed the map and your visual field. I never use the map. You can see where all of the hidden objectives and obstacles and taking photos is one of the collectibles, and finding little spider bots is one of the collectibles, and those and prowler rooms, all this stuff. All of that is visual. When I'm swinging, if I swing above the buildings, I can see around me where they all are, and they're all within striking distance. So I'm never it's not like Koroks and Zelda where I never know where they're going to be, and you just wander around aimlessly until you find a place where they might be. It's like I'm going somewhere with a purpose because it's on the way, and I can hit 1, 2, and 3. I know it's not going to take more than 5 minutes of each of them, and it's just a really satisfying feeling because the traversal in and of itself is great. Similar to what I say about Death Stranding is like if traversal and Death Stranding weren't exciting in some weird way, which sounds like a backwards thing to say given how complex it is, if that weren't good enough in and of itself, then the game would fail. And I think Spider-Man's the same thing. And in spite of all of the pressure that's put on making sure it's perfect, they kind of nail it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If the open world game is not fun to travel in, it's not fun. Yeah. And, this is fun because the actual method of travel is fun, which is kind of unique. I know I know it's your least favorite game of all time, but Red Dead Redemption 2, I like riding the horse. Horse riding is tough, clearly in video games, because every other game fucks it up all the time. But also, something is happening all the time, so it makes it feel lived in. So you go, oh, I have no problem taking my time to go, what is this? What is that? And the same thing with Spider-Man. You're having fun traveling, and you go, there's a robbery over there. Do I do that? No, okay, I'm going to keep going. Well, okay, I saw this, kind of thing. Which, I know it's a condensed version of New York, and I know New York is New York, but the most crime-ridden place of all time. It's kind of like Batman. Like, why would anyone ever live in Gotham?
True.
Why? It's something, every night, the whole news hour would be about beheadings and chemical explosions and
Gotham's the only place where the news actually tells good stories. Because
they're like, we have to
have a break. They're like, one person found a balloon today. And they're like, oh, yay.
Whereas, exactly. Whereas, they're just sweeping dead bodies down the sidewalk. And they're like, another day in Gotham. What am I going to do?
Nary a single one did Batman kill because he doesn't do that. Same with Spider-Man. By the way, combat in this game, the best tactic in the game is pushing people up in the air and swing kicking them off a building. You kill them in one shot, and yet they, quote unquote, don't die. You see a spider thing come in out of nowhere and kind of get them to a wall. Yeah. And you're like, okay. We need to just do away with that. At this point, here's one thing I'll say that I really like about the story in Spider-Man 2. Kraven comes in. I'm not too thrilled on him as a villain. I know you love Kraven. I know you love Kraven as a comic book villain. In this, his performance is uninspired. I think his presence is uninspired. Sure. I think it lends to a good mix of enemies because it's kind of this motley crew of people from all over the world, different accents, different languages. They get to tell each other stories about where they came from as you're listening in on them in the stealth sections. However, the fact that he, as Kraven, is flat out killing other villains, Vulture dies in this. Yeah. Vulture just fucking dies. I don't want to spoil too much. A bunch of villains die in this. And that makes the stakes really, really high. The thing is I understand that what separates Kraven from Spider-Man is Spider-Man won't kill, but I think morals and ethics, sure, but that's just a lie that we're all telling ourselves that superheroes don't kill. Why don't we just say, yeah, they do. And that's part of superheroes. And let's tell that story instead of this whole good, you know what I mean? Let's add some Nathan Drake to it. We know Nathan Drake is killing thousands of people, for good reason though. And he's on the good side because he needs to put these things in a museum.
Well, I'd say there's a few. Well, I think there's only a few that say I don't kill. And I think the problem is they're the two most popular. Batman and Spider-Man.
Batman. Yeah.
Because I'm even thinking of Marvel. I'm like, well, no, I can't think of anyone that else doesn't kill because I've seen them kill people. You know what I mean? I I don't know. You know,
well, you know, Wolverine's killing people. I mean, he's got fucking blades. That's his power.
Insomniac can't get away from that one. I want to talk about that at the end, by the way. The future of Insomniac. We definitely will. Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. You gotta feel really shitty being the security guard showing up to, you know, cover your, you know, daughter's braces or something like that and getting ripped in half by Venom. But like, this is life. This is life in the big city.
Yeah. What about story in general? We talked about Craven, but minute to minute story. Are you finding yourself engaged in it? Is it getting a little stale on you? What do you think?
No, I'm a little bit further than you. We kind of talked off camera to make sure that we were where we were. I'm a little further than you, and I find this story to be very interesting and really opens itself up really interestingly for a next game because we're getting into like the heavy hitting Spider-Man stuff, and I really think the biggest issue going into it, or the biggest concern that you were going to have, was that. How are they going to negotiate Miles and Peter together? Like, how are they going to negotiate? Who's going to get the lead? Who's going to get thing? I don't know. I felt like, you know, the main narrative driven plot is on Peter for sure, but I don't think that like shorts Miles at all. I think you feel like you play a lot of both of them, and they both have their both emotional weight to carry, and they both propel the story forward. I thought it was a really good use of it, which could have been very tricky.
Yeah, here's my thinking on it. I think the story, when it's good, is it's amazing. I can't wait for the next cutscene. And that's why those side missions that suck really irk me, because I'm like, guys, there's good content here. I don't want to do this dumb stuff. The stories, like the idea of like the early on stuff of Harry and Peter just being best dudes, best friends, is so great. And then when Harry discovers his powers, and Peter and Harry are kind of like figuring it out together. Like, give me a buddy, like give me 2 seasons of television with just that. That was so much fun. I loved that. Great storyline. And especially as Peter and Harry become better friends, Miles getting kind of shirked to the side. It's a really cool dynamic. Like, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's funny. And if you've not played the game and you're listening to this, like, I understand, like, you got to be okay with us talking about the game. But if you've not played the game and you went, Harry Osborn's got powers, let me tell you, they're not the ones you're thinking of.
Yes. True.
Not that one.
True. You know? It was this big kind of MacGuffin the whole time. I was like, it was an interesting take on the Spider-Man lore that I wouldn't have expected.
No, they do a couple of key changes. By the way, I also just want to say before I defend myself here, I really do love Craven. I think Craven's a very interesting character for Spider-Man or superheroes in general, just because instead of Vulture being like, I am an evil old man, you're like, all right, sounds good, you know, whatever, I can fly, and you're like, all right. Craven's just like, yeah, I'm bored and I just want to kill things that are interesting, and best of luck. Timer started 15 minutes ago. I think that is so phenomenal.
It sounds like a great, like one of those old dating videos that you make for yourself. You're like, hi, I'm Craven. I'm a little bored. I just want to kill some things. You're like, what?
This is, yes, a lion's head. I wear it around on my chest. You know, and then, you know, and I only bring that up because if you don't think I'm excited for the Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe, Craven the movie that is going to be coming out in a couple months, I'm not. It's going to be bad. So just avoid that, and just keep that in mind when remember me telling you Craven is a good character, and that's going to suck. Yeah,
I don't know. I saw the trailer and I was like, I hope it's good. I don't have much faith for it. I think there is an interesting Craven story to tell. I don't think it's that one.
They also change it wildly, whatever. And it's like, I just, Russell Crowe will never endlessly make me laugh, where he's just like taking roles and going like, okay, that's good. Yeah, I'll do that. That sounds good. I'll play like the dad. I'm like, what if he was like, well, he was kind of like a big fat guy though. And they're like, what do you think? Why do you think that? He goes, maybe he owns like a sandwich shop or something. He's like, really? And he goes, I think I'm going to get big and fat for this role. And they're like, I get, if that's how you see it. He goes, yeah, I think so. I think he'd be big and fat.
They're like, Russell, can you turn your camera on for a second? We just want to take a look at you.
Covered in mustard.
He's Brendan Fraser from The Whale, jacking off the porn in the background.
Every role now is just like, what if he was, go with me, you're big and fat. I think it'd be good.
Like, we're thinking more of your Maximus physique. Can you get back to that?
Sure.
But what if Maximus owned a sandwich shop? Yeah.
What if Maximus ate another Maximus?
What about Maximus, but like there's 4 X's in it and an L somewhere?
He really puts a Max in Maximus, yeah.
So yes, overall, I'm enjoying the story. The gameplay swinging around feels fun. But overall, and this is where I want to get back to some of my critiques. Overall,
okay,
I'm I'm finding this game to feel a little bit more chory than I expected in the actual gameplay itself. Now, the weirdest thing about that is typically what I find chory about an open world game is all of the nonsensical, non-story stuff that's just there and seemingly filler. That's what I enjoy in this game. What I'm not enjoying in this game is the fact that every mission is accompanied by 6 fight sequences that are way too long. I'm playing through these fight sequences. I'm like, these mechanics are the same as they are in the Arkham games. And yet for some reason, I'm really not enjoying them. And I had to rack my brain for why that was. And I think it comes down to in Batman, A, he's Batman. Batman fucking kicks ass. B, in Spider-Man, but cannot kill anyone. Yeah. Spider-Man, the enemies are so spread out. Like the combat areas are 100 meters in circumference or something like that. And I think that's on purpose to keep him agile and floating around and swinging and give him space and all that.
Yes.
But the problem is it makes the combat feel so much less chunky. A, because you're moving from like one guy to this guy to that guy to that guy. You don't even see who you're blocking or who's shooting you from off screen. You're just kind of flinging webs everywhere. It takes you way too long to kill a single enemy. And you can't target enemies. So what you should be doing is when there's an enemy who's 100 meters away from you with a gun that's targeting you, you should be able to just like target that person, yank his gun away or go straight to him. You really have to like angle the camera, somehow aim over everyone's head. And even then, if you press triangle to like bring yourself to them, you're going to have to get through like 4 or 5 enemies until the camera decides to target them. It just feels a lot more clunky and a lot more, kind of like floaty and less directed, I think, than I would have wanted it to be and what I remember it being in Batman. I'm just finding the combat is incredibly boring to me for some reason, and they've like tripled down on it. I'm like, every combat scene has like, you do it, and then there's another scene where a car comes in with a turret on it and a bunch of more enemies, and then a helicopter, and then
defended,
wash, rinse, repeat. Yeah.
I see. It's so funny. I haven't noticed that with this game for a couple of reasons, but I will say to you, yes, by the end of Spider-Man 1, I agreed with it. It was like, oh, here we go again. Another exact same shit. You know what I mean? Like, again. And I will say the first game, I think, is longer technically, and they did a good job of paring that down a little bit. Because the second game is, the one thing I was going to give it credit for was it's reduced the number of gizmos and gadgets.
Yes.
Which I think is a real plus, because this is now I'm glad we brought up power creep, because eventually he was going to become Godzilla. Like he was going to become like, well, how's anyone going to fucking stop Spider-Man? And they've reduced a lot of that. And I think that's to their benefit, except for they've added the web grabber, which is so much fun, smacking 2 people together. And so I think, I agree with you. I think the reducing of things and the reducing of stealth missions in general has helped a large part of it as well. Don't just be Spider-Man, man. Like Batman, let Batman be Batman. Like just go in there, say something funny, kick some ass, tie some people together. That's totally fine. I didn't find the repetition the same way, but I did at the end of the first game, so I can understand why you'd feel that way. Yeah,
I'm finding in between missions, and especially boss fights, like the 3-phase boss fights that are just like the boss fights are uninspired. It's not Dark Souls, and it's not even God of War, which I thought had some exciting boss fights. This just feels like a really watered down version. And then the stealth mechanics, it feels like I'll say this, the boss fights feel like Insomniac trying to be God of War. The stealth mechanics feels like Insomniac trying to be Arkham. The combat itself is trying to be more like Assassin's Creed plus Arkham or something like that. The thing that really scares me about this is Insomniac is so good at looking. Sharks do scare me about this. King Shark can show up at any moment, cross DC and Marvel. King Shark shows up.
I just thought you were just bringing up fears in general. Sorry. Okay.
The thing that scares me about this, ghosts, but also though.
Wouldn't that be such a good point? You're just like these fights are so tiresome, but also one of my biggest fears, sharks. Thank you. That's my time.
The fights, do whatever you want, but I am scared of sharks. I don't understand what's going on.
We are not talking about clowns enough. Okay.
What scares me about it is Insomniac is so good at looking what all the other game companies are doing and fucking ignoring it and just making something that's fun. Like how Kojima makes mechanics, like Taylor makes them for his game, in spite of what all the traditional like shorthands for game mechanics have been. Insomniac's so good at just making things fun, but this feels like them trying so desperately to be other games that it worries me. Are they now stuck in this cycle of we've got an amazing product and now we have to just continue to be that product instead of innovating. Like, if Spider-Man 2 is amazing for a lot of people, awesome, yes, have that. But I'm really worried about what that does to a studio like them that's so used to being unique and innovative. We already know what their next year or two or three are going to look like. Innovative. With superhero games. And it's almost like getting Marvelified or Disneyified. Is this happening to Insomniac? That scares the shit out of me.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because we ended up at the same point, but we got there in different ways. Because that is what I was going to say about Insomniac in general, because the next game is Wolverine.
Yes.
And then they've got a couple other Marvel games that they've announced too, or rumored and whatever.
Yeah.
And my fear isn't that Spider-Man 2 wasn't great, and so they were going to... I loved Spider-Man 2. I think it's really, really good. And I think for the most part, people are kind of enjoying it. So take that for what it is. But I agree with you that my fear is now they're tied to this 800-pound gorilla that will crush them. And it's
they
just
were
like,
bought by Sony. Like, this is what they do now. Yeah.
There's no winning now. There's no winning. Like, Wolverine gets announced, people lose their fucking minds. But guess what? When the Gambit game is announced afterwards, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then the next one, you're like, okay, well, all right, that's fine. Kind of thing. It just, the bloom comes off the rose real fast. I will say, I'm a creative hack. I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I suck. But when you say a Spider-Man game, I go, okay, swing through the city, Mary Jane, tell stories. They're like, yeah, I could figure that one out. When they say a Wolverine video game, I have no idea. And so I'm very curious of what they're going to do.
That's true. It could be an entirely different experience. And I hope that it is. And I still have all the faith in the world that Insomniac's going to find a way to make it unique. And what I like about a Wolverine game is, assuming that they don't do this, like, one button to attack, one button to dodge, L1 is a modifier on gadgets, R1 is a modifier. As long as they don't do that Assassin's Creed, Batman Arkham kind of style of combat, and they do something different, I'm happy with it. But Jesus Christ, what if they do? What if that's what they do now? Are they the next Ubisoft? Are they just going to be pumping out these games that aren't exciting anymore, that are still very well made, but start to feel very samey at their core?
I know that is my fear. And I can't throw that onto Spider-Man 2 and go like, well, that's your fault now. Like, I don't like you anymore. And you're like, no, you made a good game that, seemingly is going to sell very well and people seem to like. But it does give me a little bit of dread for the future. I don't know, maybe set low expectations. Who knows what's going to happen? We're like, we're recording this before the weekend, and this is the weekend where the Marvels come out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
All we've heard for years is going, that is going to suck, by the way. They're like, it is a disaster. They reshot it 4 times, blah, 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 blah. The tracking, all this money, because we allocate money and quality all the time together. It's not going to do very well. And now the reviews come out, they're like, you know what? It's really not that bad. And you're like, you know what? Just lower every expectation ever in my mind. And so honestly, I can walk out the happiest man in the world.
That's it, but it scares me to think of Insomniac being that, like they've always been my favorite developer. Ratchet and Clank is one of my favorite franchises, if not my favorite franchise of all time. Resistance gets a lot of flack sometimes for some missteps that they took, but a World War II shooter with aliens where each of the guns feel wildly different. Like, they're really good at what they do, and I just hope that they're allowed to remain. At least if it's not Marvel, maybe they've expanded so much that they can take on other projects, but then are they still the same Insomniac? I don't know. I was
going to say, when have we found that to be successful among video game companies?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially even more than movie studios or TV or things like that. Video games, they just get swallowed by these things because we know they take like 5 years to make, and they just get eaten up by these things. So I just don't want to see it happen to such a good studio that has had such good successes in the past and just made another good game,
Yeah. And I feel like one of the ways that they're trying to maintain their Insomniac identity within Spider-Man 2 is the number of different weird mini games and like almost side things that you can do, like isolating proteins or whatever to figure out chemical things is like this weird mini game where you have to cut off different like bad elements of a genome or something.
But there was a version of that in the first one. It was just a little
They've always inserted some of these things as well. Yeah. They also have a very common, like holding the DualSense triggers down to different depths and holding it for a little while. The Prowler missions incorporate all these different techniques and movement things.
The timed speed ones.
Yes, exactly. And the problem is, I feel like none of them are very well realized, and it's all kind of Insomniac being like, here's some variety, but the variety isn't fun. And that's my thing about open world games, where I'm like, just because I can do something doesn't mean I want to. And I'm getting a bit of a sense of that. And I don't want to like rain on everyone's parade, but I'm like, do I want to be like, never make me a fucking spider bot in these games. Never make me a spider bot. I'm Spider-Man and now I have to be a little machine.
Two of them.
Yeah. It's so, but like, that just feels like I'm crawling through vents and like propelling myself and stealth missioning is like, it's boring. I don't want to do it. Never make me MJ also. Never.
I know.
And this is not a, but they don't, they shouldn't be in the game. No, it's like that. It sucks because you make that argument and you're all of a sudden looped in with people who are making it for the wrong reasons. But like,
you're like, not like him. Yeah.
Not like him. I'm Spider-Man who's struggling to beat a hunter. And then MJ is like just laying waste to them with a taser. And I'm like, so what are we doing here, guys? I don't know. You know, again, nitpicks. And I know a lot of people love the variety because, you know, either they enjoy it or it's a palate cleanser or anything. So I don't want to be the one that's kind of like the stick in the mud. But yeah, I'm struggling with the game a bit. I'm not liking it as much as I thought I would. It's an unbelievable game, but I do find myself less excited to pick it up and less excited to play it for stints of longer than like 40, 50 minutes or something.
That's interesting. No, I am, it's a big time suck for me, but one that I enjoy being in. So I totally understand that. I wonder though, is this your open world thing again? I don't know.
It could be. It honestly could be because
not to throw all your criticisms away or anything. You know what I mean? I'm just saying like, just interesting.
I think the problem is that it's not that I hate all open world games. It's that I hate the things that most open world games do to make themselves feel more full. And they're kind of cliches. Yeah, to fill the time. And it's things that I noticed Spider-Man doing that I'm like, like Spider-Man could be like 6 hours shorter if the combat was tighter, more difficult in spurts, and didn't involve 27 enemies and we're instead just focused on like what, but it's that power creep thing and they can't pull back on the reins. I don't know. Let's leave that for a little bit and let's get into a couple questions that I prepared, Andrew. Similar to what we did when we talked about Super Mario Wonder. I want to ask you these two questions. This game feels best when
this game feels best when I am swinging through the streets of New York City. I know we already kind of spoke it. Yeah, we already spoke about it. I don't think because you are Spider-Man. It's so funny where it's like, we've all gotten the feeling of being someone very powerful in video games our whole life while you, break 20 people's necks and stuff like that. Like that's something that you're very comfortable doing and whatever. But the things that you're not used to doing is the banal stuff, is like the everyday normal stuff. And I think that's the stuff that would be so interesting. And so just being able to get a new perspective of a city we're all pretty familiar with is really, really cool.
Yep, I agree. That's exactly my answer as well. And I think, when I think about being Spider-Man as a kid, when I used to imagine it, I was never imagining beating up bad guys. I was imagining swinging through the streets of New York City. And that would be fun to me. Or maybe wrapping myself around the CN Tower because I'm a little Toronto boy. Ooh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we need a Canadian Spider-Man. We have a Captain Canada. We don't have a Canadian Spider-Man though.
Oh, damn. How about this, Andrew? This game feels worse when...
It feels worse when, okay, you know what? When the camera cuts to that very specific angle that it does, and I can see 9 guys kind of going like, oh yeah, come on, Spider-Man. And you're like, oh, another one of these. Another one of these.
Another generic combat moment.
Oh God. I will say, like, I think, like I said earlier, I think the voice acting and some of the amazing amount of voice lines that they use are really impressive considering the size of the city. But it is funny that there is like lunkhead number 3 that's going like, hey, spider guy, I'm going to break your face. And you're like, all you've done is just you got hired recently because he killed the guy that was in your spot earlier. Like,
that's it.
It never ceases to make me laugh that somebody's like, Batman, I heard he's not even that tough. You're like, are you out of your mind? Okay, whatever.
Who did you hear that from? A guy in a hospital? Like, what are we talking about here?
Exactly.
Yeah, my this feels worst when I'm on the second of 3 phases of a boss fight. When I know that I still have another phase before this, and I know it's going to happen, and I just have to deal with whatever this portion is before I reach the end of the boss fight. That's when it feels worst for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
So here's one that I wanted to ask specifically because we played it so close to, and in fact, kind of side by side with, in my case, Super Mario Wonder. What are some of the biggest things you notice when playing these two games so close together? Either what made them different, similar, things that you would have liked in one game because of what you experienced in another, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's funny playing them next to each other because they could not be more opposite.
Yeah.
I guess it could have been more opposite if I was playing whatever, Cyberpunk or something like that, like dark, gritty, violent game next to Mario. That would be something where you're like, oh yeah, that's very different. But this being the big, huge, expansive, open world, next to a bright and colorful and cute 2D side scrolling, it really does give you whiplash a little bit. I think they're both beautiful in their own right for different reasons, but it is funny that, you know, at the end of the day, we started playing video games with simplicity, and it's funny that simplicity can still have such a draw on us. But I play them very different ways, and I think that's the thing that I noticed the difference between them. I play Mario in these 30-minute bits where I go, that was a lot of fun, and I put it down. Whereas like Spider-Man, I'm like, it's like 1:45, and I'm like, oh, what happened? Where's that? Where's that? Okay. Am I looking for backpacks? Is that number 1? Oh my God, what am I doing? You know what I mean? You kind of wake up and you're surrounded by like Buzz Cola cans or something like that. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think in terms of differences from my perspective, I think Mario is, and what Nintendo does well is they kind of know what it is to make like video game fun distilled to its most basic essence.
Yes.
Strip away everything. What is fun and whimsical about playing a video game? And because of that, because of the simplicity, everything is intuitive. In Spider-Man, nothing is intuitive. You can't just pick up the controller if you've never played games and know what to do. Whereas I could put the controller for Mario in someone's hand who's never played games, and they will figure out how to play it. And they will ramp up how the game expects you to ramp it up. Granted, you know, like I said, Mario is way more simplistic, but if I put Spider-Man down for a few days, I have to remember how to play the game in some points. I have to like readjust to the combat. Mario is like innate. It's like the knowledge of how to play Mario is like a human instinct. It was the first instinct we had when we played video games, and I feel like anyone can pick it up and play. So it's interesting playing two things that are on such opposite sides of the spectrum for that.
They really are opposite sides of the spectrum, not on quality, but just on almost every other aspect.
Yeah. But it is tough because I think Mario in its simplicity made me realize, again, you know, and this is just a self-discovery that is ongoing. I am so much more aware of the fact that I prefer simplicity in games. I like Cocoon is a better experience in my mind than Spider-Man 2. Even though they set out to do wildly different things, I think that there's a much more clear goal, and it doesn't play games with what it's asking you to do. It's just sets you out on a path, and then you go do it. Maybe that has something to do with linearity. I don't know. But that's just my personal preference. And with that, maybe we get into our personal preferences of the game, Andrew. Do you want to give Spider-Man 2 a score out of 4 bits based on your experience playing it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. This one gets the tough stamp of approval because this is really tough. I loved it. I love it. And for me, this is absolutely a 4 out of 4. But if I had to give this an objective score, separate from me, I'd probably give it 3.5 out of 4. Not that it did anything majorly wrong, but like I am such a mark for this shit that this is like, this could be such a big turd and I'd be like, I love it. It's great. You know what I mean? But I would say to an average goer, a 3.5 out of 4, it's a very, very good game that you're going to get a lot out of and a lot of time. And more than anything, as games get more expensive, this is absolutely worth your investment. There is so much time to be put into this game. There's no way you're going to walk away 50 hours later and go like, I don't know. You're like, I don't know if that was worth $70 in Canada. So like, I think this is great. It's got some stuff that's kind of repetitive. It's got some stuff that we've seen before, but inside the trappings of a New York City with the two Spider-Man, with their two different stories, I think it's absolutely worth the wait and was really just a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I think a 3.5 is fair. I think a 4 would be fair as well. I'm actually going to do slightly less. I'm giving this one a 3 out of 4. And I know that that's low, but I think it's just because Insomniac has now entered a style of game that is very well trodden. Everything or a lot of what they've done in this game has been done in other games. And granted, they do it very, very well. But as a result, it just kind of feels very samey. I feel like I played this game before, and I don't want to be this guy, but this game, as great as it looks and as great as it feels, does feel and look very similar to what we had in Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5. It is a very similar game. There's an argument to be made that it's kind of just more of the same, and not that we want, a wild change to the formula or anything like that, but it just, as a result, feels less special to me. Still loving my time with it, but it isn't special in the way that I would award it if it took some bigger swings. I think it's just playing it safe, but it's playing safeness very well. And I know that sounds almost opposite of what I said about Mario, where they know what they want to do and they set it out and they do it really well. But I think they overcomplicate it more than Mario does. And I think in trying to just kind of play it safe and yet give you a little bit of feeling of difference from the genre, I think they've kind of missed the ball a little bit. I don't know.
Oh, that's so interesting. Wow. That is totally fine. A 3 out of 4 is 75%, and that's close to an 8 out of 10 that IGN gave it to. So it's not out of the realm of craziness, but it is definitely lower than most people are giving it, but you're that brave reviewer that will do that.
I am brave. And to be fair, if we were rating it out of 10, my score would look a lot different. It's the same thing as Mario. Like Mario Wonder got the 4 out of 4. It would be a 7.
Lower.
A 6.9 baby. It would be a different score, but that's where we stand. Again, this is a very strong 3 out of 4. I will say that. And if you like these types of games, it's going to rank higher for you. But I just think that it's important that some people talk about what this game gets wrong in being what it is, which is a relatively safe open world game.
See, it's so funny where this is, we've already gone long enough. We don't need to have a 30-minute conversation about this, but I think we can save it for a future conversation. Whereas I think this game puts the Spider-Man franchise above the Rocksteady Arkham franchise for me.
Oh man, that is an episode in and of itself, because I would love to have that debate. I feel so strongly the opposite of that. That's what's making this game hard for me to play.
I just remember the Batmobile. Oof.
It's weird because I liked the Batmobile. That's,
oh my God.
I know not everyone did, but some of us do. And for me, it was just a good palate cleanse. But
you don't like the driving in GTA, right?
I do like the driving in GTA.
Oh, so a man of class, I see. Okay, well, never mind. But yeah, I think we can have a franchise battle episode one day soon because that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, those are our scores. We'd love to know what you thought of the Spider-Man 2. Obviously, we are not getting too much about the endings here. As we get closer to it, I'm sure we'll talk more about it in future episodes and our thoughts on the story as it comes to a close. Same for Super Mario Wonder as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But until then, can't wait to talk to you soon. We love every single one of you. And once again, we cannot wait to talk to you soon. My name is Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
See, you change one thing, and the whole thing changes. This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. That Spider-Man's a menace!
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
Jennifer won't remember her quinceanera